Welcome back to another episode of Life After Corporate, my friend. And if you're new to our show, welcome home. This is where we help you not only develop the skill set, but also the mindset for success as you make this transition from corporate leader to entrepreneur. And if you've been in my circle for any length of time, you've likely heard me say that visibility is currency. Visibility is money in your bank account. And yet, at the same time, I know I'm not alone in experiencing bouts of resistance to certain types of visibility. And today, our guest is Anna Holtzman. She is a licensed therapist and coach who helps high functioning women move through the fear of visibility and emerge into a truer expression of their work and identity. And she had a corporate background as well. After 15 years in TV and publishing, I hear there's reality TV in there somewhere,
Yeah.
and experienced firsthand how burnout,
Mhm.
chronic pain, and repeated self-silencing can arise when success is driven by pressure rather than trust. Her own healing led her to nervous system informed tools that helped her reconnect with her voice, show up more honestly in her work, and now she supports other women in doing the same, melting through imposter syndrome, bringing their most authentic visions to life, and allowing themselves to be seen without performing. And I'm so excited to dig into that with you today. Anna, welcome to Life After Corporate.
Thanks so much for having me here, Deb, and I'm so happy to be here with you and with these listeners talking about visibility and how we do not always jump out of bed feeling like we're excited to show up for that.
Oh my God, where's my camera? How can I document putting on my makeup? No, that is not
Yeah.
my form of visibility and likely not yours as well. So tell us a little bit about when we were talking before we hit record and you shared about your 15 years in TV and media and reality TV. Like, what led you to become a therapist? Like, you've had a
Yeah.
whole portfolio career here
I've had
already.
many pivots, and I'll try to tell in a nutshell how I got from there to here, but it involves some storytelling. So, yeah, I started off thinking I was going to be an architect and then pivoted into working in publishing, and from there into television, worked in reality TV for 10 years. And each time I pivoted, I really wanted to do my own thing, have my own business or my own brand, my own voice. Um, but over and over again, I wound up being a creative for hire in these various industries. And I'll tell one story that's kind of emblematic of a pattern. So when I was transitioning from publishing into film and TV, I wanted to launch my career as a director. And to do that, I made a very scrappy documentary about subway musicians. I've always lived in New York City. And I put on my own screening at a small theater downtown. And because I worked at a magazine still, I had all these press contacts. I knew what a press release looked like because I received tons of them every day. And so I wrote up one of my own and sent it to everyone who was in my address book. I had this initial, wave of energy for visibility to put myself out there, this initial excitement. And that press release garnered some incredible visibility. I got a full page write up in Time Out New York magazine, which was
Wow.
big at the time. This was like 2007 or 6 or something. Um, I was invited to be on a live local TV show hosted by NPR's Brian Lehrer.
Wow.
And yeah, and the biggest wow of all was David Lee Roth, formerly of Van Halen, had a live radio show at the time, and he had me on his radio show to talk about the film. Super exciting. After the screening, which was well attended because of all of this press, I Googled my name, and along with all this really cool press, I found one very obscure personal blog in which someone had written a scathing takedown of the film and of me. Um, and I just crumpled. I just was so affected by this that I crumpled, and I didn't even realize that I crumpled, because what happened is I sort of went into what I would call now, with the language I have these days, a state of nervous system freeze.
Mm.
And so it was almost like I went into a fugue state, and a couple months later woke up out of it, turned to look in the rearview mirror and said, "Oh, I guess launching myself as a director just didn't work out. I guess nobody ever picked up the film. I guess nobody ever discovered me as a director." And what I didn't see at the time is that I had stopped showing up and
Yeah.
being visible, because my nervous system went into a fear state. But I didn't develop the language for that, nor the tools of knowing what to do about it, until years and years later, when I was in my fourth career pivot in my 40s. um, Went back to grad school to become a therapist. I joke that the stress of working in reality TV drove me to therapy, and then I found it fascinating enough to switch careers. Um, and during that time, I had been experiencing sporadic migraine attacks throughout my career in TV. Had a lot to do with the pressure of that industry. Um, and interestingly, when I went to grad school, and now is the pressure of becoming something new, the migraine attacks became chronic, and they really started to take over my life. And so I had to pay attention and do research, and discovered this whole body of work of mind body medicine for chronic pain, learning how to work with the nervous system instead of against it. And using this work, I found my way out of that chronic cycle. I essentially healed from the chronic migraines. And it was so life changing that I made that the focus of my therapy and coaching practice, helping others. And I started my own business. And here I was once again having to put myself out there. And this time around, I was so tuned into my nervous system and what it was doing, I started to notice, wow, every time I put myself out there and make myself visible, which feels quite vulnerable,
Yeah, it does.
it does. Because we have this catalog of negative experiences from the past, whether it was, that blog post that I read, or plenty of experiences in childhood. Um, I noticed, my muscles would contract, I would start to sweat. I would sometimes get a headache. I'd have like a surge of negative self-talk or anxiety come up right before getting on a podcast or even making an Instagram post. Or another kind of sneakier one is I'd get a wave of fatigue. Like, I don't really want to do this. I just want to go back to sleep. And
Well, I want
I,
to pause right
yeah,
here.
yeah,
So, I want to ask our listeners, how many of you can relate already?
yeah.
This surge of just this desire, this burning inside, this agency, this free will of creation. And we are all creators as entrepreneurs. You wouldn't be an entrepreneur if you weren't a creator, because we're all creating something out of nothing, out of our expertise, packaging that, selling that to people who need it. But I love this story because it's so real. And yet, when you put yourself out there and it's vulnerable, and there's this surge of adrenaline and dopamine and serotonin and all of these good things, and then swoosh, one bad review or one bad experience. I think I told you, and maybe some of our listeners have heard this before. When I was a little girl, for some reason, my kindergarten teacher and mother thought it was a good idea to put me on local television in a show called Romper Room. And I was painfully shy. I mean, anxiety prone, shy of visibility. And on that very first day on that show, I fell flat on my face. I don't think I went back for the rest of the week. I think you could not drag me back on that TV set. We were just running around pretending to be airplanes. Maybe one of the boys even tripped me. It probably wasn't even my fault. But, I wasn't really quick on my feet. But those small things unconsciously keep records. It's like they
Mm.
say the body keeps score. with respect to emotional and physical abuse, but I think the same is true with these little micro traumas that we experience, or the first time you had to get up in front of your company and make a major speech, and the sweats, and you forgot what you were saying and the words kind of all jumbled together, and then at the end you hoped that you got your message out.
Yeah.
All of these things kind of come with us. My mother-in-law used to say, "Wherever you go, there you are." So all these traumas come with you when you step into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and I can really relate to your romper room story. I have a number of stories from my childhood. The details are different, but the architecture of it is the same. And I think it's such a great metaphor for what happens when we are making ourselves visible. Those who are only listening and not watching the video won't see this, but I'm opening my arms up and opening my chest. When we're making ourselves visible, we're letting people into who we are, which is very vulnerable. And if we receive some kind of wound in that vulnerable state, it doesn't have to be something that looks like a major trauma on paper, because we encounter that negative feedback or falling on our, physically falling or whatever it is while in a vulnerable state. Think of like someone pouring salt in an open wound. It's going to make a deeper impact because of that open state we are in when we are visible.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So what are some of the challenges that you see your clients coming to you now? You're working
Yeah.
with high achieving women. I'm assuming some of them are entrepreneurs, and this self-trust,
Yes.
especially in this transition from corporate to entrepreneurship, where all the scaffolding is removed, the title, the paycheck, the responsibility, the reputation that you've so carefully crafted and earned, and now
Yes.
you're standing here like naked in the circle
Yeah.
of, who am I now?
Absolutely that. Yeah, the nakedness. It's so interesting what you're describing. It makes me think of something. I work with both individuals and groups, and it makes me think of something a group member recently said. And when she said it, you could see like the lights go on in everyone's eyes because everyone related to it so much. And so she said, I feel like my credentials are this protective mask, and I'm so sick of it. I just want to express the fullness of who I am. I want to be me, and I get inspired, and there's a workshop I'm going to lead or a talk I'm going to give, and I'm just going to express the fullness of who I am. But then the moment before I step into it, I get so scared. It's like expansion, contraction. I want to expand, but ooh, it's scary because of all these visibility wounds. And so I just want to grab my credentials and hold them up like armor to protect me. And this toggling back and forth between the safety of our old identity, but also the discomfort of our old identity. It's a mask that's keeping us safe in a sense, but it's also a cage that's constricting us. And so a lot of what I'm doing is helping and supporting clients to navigate that toggling back and forth of what's more uncomfortable. Is it more uncomfortable to be exposed, or is it more uncomfortable to feel trapped in an identity you've outgrown and that maybe was never fully yours to begin with? And which of those discomforts do you want to deal with? And because one of them is can be quite intense, but it's temporary, it's transitional. The other one can be low grade at times, but it's chronic and it will continue to flare up.
Yeah. And we all know those people who are chasing the latest credential. Right?
Yeah.
You see them on LinkedIn. They have, 12 initials after their name. And it's
Yes.
so transparent to me now. It's just like, to me, when I see that, I say, "Oh my God, you poor thing. You feel so insecure in your own credibility and your own
Yeah.
value that you've chased all these credentials." The other thing that happens on the visibility front is because you're so attached to acquiring that knowledge, and that knowledge becomes your value, that
Yes.
no one can understand what you're saying. You start hiding behind the jargon and the
Yeah.
concepts, and no one really sees you, and they kind of get lost in the ideas. And it's really hard to turn visibility into currency when no one can understand what you're saying.
It's so true. There's a story that comes to mind hearing you say that. Several months ago, I went to see a play. It was a one-man play.
Hmm.
And this guy starts off and he's revealing quite a lot about himself because he's talking about um, his identity questions and his anxiety about his identity and how he's gone to lots of therapy for his anxiety. So it's quite revealing. However, during that entire time, he's in a flop sweat, just sweating profusely. The sweat is pouring down his face. It's landing on the floor. He hasn't mentioned it yet. And I just felt like I was holding my breath because I felt so disconnected from him because he wasn't naming this thing. And this is intentional in this play. Eventually he said, I tried all these different ways to hide my anxiety, but the one thing I couldn't hide was the sweat. And you could just hear the whole audience exhale with relief that now we're in it with him. Now we can relate to him. Now we feel like we don't have to be hiding the thing that we're always trying to hide about ourselves. And it's always that thing that we think we need to mask or hide about ourselves that could be the thing that humanizes us, that humanizes whoever's listening to us. They get to breathe a sigh of relief when we name it. It's how we connect with each other is by allowing ourselves to be real and to be vulnerable and to sometimes have woken up in the morning thinking I would rather hide under the covers than speak to this audience. Just naming it instantly connects us to each other.
Yeah. And I think, in this day and age where we are right now, where visibility, especially online, is so overwhelming, and there's different ways to be visible, right? So there's many different channels, many different ways
Yeah.
to be visible, but it feels pressurizing because you can tell yourself that everyone's online, everyone's doing reels, and there's this pressure on being authentic. And then authenticity then becomes performative because, what does authentic mean when I am on a medium trying to convey a message that's not the same that I would if I were like calling out my best friend and saying, I'm having a meltdown today,
Yeah.
and like, how much do you share online? There is so much psychology wrapped up in video visibility, I think, for someone who didn't grow up with a cell phone in her hand, who wasn't used to documenting her life story. In fact, I was a photographer, so I was behind the camera at
Yeah.
one point in my life, documenting what other people were doing, and turning the camera inward becomes really uncomfortable. But give me a pen and paper, a blog, or long form content, I'll write all day, every day. Give me a small room with, 20 people on a Zoom, 30 people on
Yeah.
a Zoom. I can engage all day, every day. Those are the forms of visibility that energize me. So, talk to us about, is this something that we have to get over? Like, everybody needs to be on video? It's like, how do
Blah.
you get comfortable with visibility without avoiding the thing that you should be visible on? Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. I feel like my take on this is a little bit of a both and because that phrase, like, do we just have to get over it? It just makes my stomach turn. I feel like everything about the work that I do is reversing this mentality of just get over it, power through, ignore what your body's feeling, ignore your emotions, and just get over it. Like, I'm a sensitive person, and the just get over it mentality doesn't work for me. That phrase just, makes me want to freeze. So, my feeling both for myself and for my clients is always like, go where it's warm. Step into the part of the pool that feels warm to you now, and let that visibility help your nervous system acclimate. If it's speaking in a room of 3 people, start there. Start where it feels, even if it feels like a little bit of a stretch, it doesn't feel like it's going to totally blow your fuses and knock you out, because that's just going to set you back and freak you out and create more negative associations, more neural pathways that associate visibility with danger. So we don't want to do that. Um, and at the same time, even stepping into a room of 3 friends might feel scary when you're thinking of it as like, oh, now I'm presenting myself in this new identity. Now I'm talking about my business, and suddenly what felt safe feels scary to me. So we do need tools to, I say, melt through the fear, not get over it. And
Yeah, let's talk
I
about
can
some
go, yeah,
tools. Yeah, that would be
yeah.
super fascinating because truly in this day and age, visibility is a requisite.
Hmm.
There, you can't be undiscoverable and still make a name for yourself, still build a
Yeah.
business, still attract clients. So it is a must have. So how do people who have these micro traumas, wherever they come from, this discomfort in a channel, um how do they melt that? I love the way you phrased it, and I'm not doing it justice.
Yeah, the melting through fear. So I can talk about 3 tools. They're very basic, but they become complex in the implementation. And the first, I call the melt through method. It's my method of journaling. I
Mhm.
like to journal. You don't have to be someone who likes to journal. You can do this without writing, but it's really a dialogue with my fear. So this is something that I discovered through my recovery process from migraine, is that my emotions, if I think of them as individual people that behave the way, you know, my fear behaves the way a frightened person would behave. And if I think about it that way, it reorients the way that I relate to fear. Because if a friend came and knocked on my door and said, "Oh, I'm feeling really afraid," and if I said to her, just get over it. I'm really busy. I'm about to go on a podcast. Can you just get over it? You can imagine what that would do for her fear. It would not soothe her nerves. The fear would escalate, and she would either crumple up into a ball or she would explode and get really mad at me. But if I said instead, you know what? I'm really busy right now. I'm about to go on a podcast, but I care so much about you. I absolutely have 5 minutes for you. Come in. Let's sit on the couch. Want me to put a hand on your back? Tell me what's going on. Whatever it is that you're feeling is not too weird or different. I promise you, I've been there too. So I would normalize the fear. I would express curiosity and care. I'd listen. And then once she told me what was going on, I wouldn't say, all right, thanks, bye, gotta go. I would offer words of compassion, acknowledgement, and encouragement. And that's exactly what I do. As quirky as this might sound, it's what I do in written form, dialoguing with my own fear. And it just starts to take the edge off.
Yeah, it's more of instead of being in the feeling, stepping out and being an observer of it and getting curious, like, isn't this interesting? I am
Yeah.
experiencing this feeling of fear. And I think it's also the removing of the identity of it. Like I'm scared,
Yeah.
I'm too afraid or I'm too uncomfortable instead of just observing, oh, I'm feeling this tightness in my chest and naming it. Oh,
Yeah.
that's feeling a little anxious. And isn't that interesting? Right. So I love the journal. I'm a
Yes.
big journaler. I think so
It's
much insight comes out of pen to paper.
absolutely. It's the stepping back from it and observing. And I think really importantly, and this can feel awkward to people at first, particularly folks who are accustomed to driving their own success through pressure and being their own drill sergeant. This part can feel very awkward and even cringe, but it's first observing the feelings and then it's responding to them with compassion, like a friend. And I'll write the words down on the paper. I'll say, I love you. I'm so proud of you. I'm right here with you. And even if writing down those words feels unnatural at first, what I tell folks is that it's not about feeling the words that you're writing down. It's not about feeling like, yeah, I do really love myself. It's more about offering your nervous system an opportunity to hear those words. And I myself continue to be surprised at how impactful it is, even when the words are coming from me.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great tool. What else do you have in your toolkit?
Yeah. So the next tool, we've kind of talked about it a little already, is in my previous niche of pain reprocessing therapy. We call it graded exposure. And all this really is breaking things down into bite-size steps. So dipping one toe into the pool and then stepping out and saying, "Oh, you did really great. Okay, now let's take step a step deeper into the pool." And an example of this, when I started marketing myself, I heard you got to get on camera, you got to make videos on Instagram, and I just felt terrified of that. Um, it was I felt like I couldn't even explain it. It was like I knew what I wanted to say, and then I'd turn on the camera and I would just freeze.
Mm.
And I I had made a friend on Instagram through my non-video posts, and she was making a lot of videos, and she said, "Hey, do you want to come on and do a live with me?" And I thought, "No, I don't, because I'm terrified, but also yes, because this would be a great opportunity for my two both my other tools. One is graded exposure, so it's one bite-sized step, and the other is co-regulation. When we're with someone that we feel safe with, our nervous systems are like tuning forks. And so we are co regulating with their frequency. If it's someone we don't feel safe with, that'll amplify our feelings of fear and anxiety. But if it's someone we feel connected with, we feel soothed by their presence and interacting with them. And I felt very safe with her. So I thought, what a great opportunity. She's already comfortable on camera. So I'll be with her. And this is a step along the way to eventually making videos solo. And I can co regulate with her and look into her eyes and notice how friendly she is and how good I feel in her presence. And that really helped ease me into it.
Yeah, I love that. I've often said to clients that confidence is earned and it
Yeah.
comes from doing things that feel difficult and surviving or thriving through them. And then you have
Yeah.
the confidence that, oh, I can do that. That wasn't so hard. The mental construct I had about it was blown way out of proportion. And now I can go off and do it again. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember 13 years ago, the very first time I did a webinar, way before there was Zoom or the tools that we have today. And you weren't even seeing my face on the screen. It was just me sharing slides, presenting, and hearing the audio. And that I had pasted photographs of all of my good friends and colleagues who were in the same master class that I
Oh,
was in, because it made me feel like, oh, I was among friends, and it kind of reduced that anxiety. So I just went to that naturally. Um,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, it just reminds me of years ago when I was working in reality TV. I dealt with a different form of visibility, which is I was a video editor. And in that role, there was always a producer looking over my shoulder, literally watching me work as I'm editing and, making creative decisions at a fast pace. There's someone scrutinizing what I'm doing in real time. And I would feel so exposed. It would often pull me out of what I was doing and I'd freeze and then I'd panic and think, "Oh, what am I going to do? I'm going to get fired." And the way that I would get back into the flow was always to get back into empathy. I would reconnect with the characters in the scene that I was editing and tap into the empathy that I felt for them. And that would kind of melt my nervous system from this frozen iceberg state into warmth and connection and energy flow. And that was the way back in.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Anna, if our listeners are feeling anxious about
And
visibility and they want to hear more from you or learn more from you, how do they get in touch with you? This has been such a rich conversation today.
yeah. Thank you so much. And thanks for inviting me here and to connect with you and these listeners. First of all, if you are feeling any kind of fear or anxiety about visibility, you are in such good company with many people that you know, many people that you follow, that you admire, I promise you. And a great way to get a taste of the work that I do and these tools that I'm describing is I have a free workshop. It's called Let Yourself Be Seen, and it walks you through these tools step by step by the hand. And you can go to my website, annaholtzman.com/be seen, and grab the workshop there. And you can also send me an email to get in touch. I'm at anna@annaholtzman.com. And I reply to every email. I love hearing from folks.
Yeah, we'll put all
Yeah.
those links in the show notes, Anna. Thank you so much. Anything else you want to share before we close
Yeah,
it off?
I guess, yeah, you can also connect with me on Instagram. I'm at Anna_Holtzman. And I also have a podcast called How to Trust Yourself. And Deb is going to be a guest on it very soon. So check that out as well.
Woo! Excited for that.
Me too.
Well, thank you. Thank you for this conversation. My friends, we've talked frequently that, there's the skill set of entrepreneurship and then there's the mindset of entrepreneurship, and mindset trumps skill set every single time. New
Absolutely.
skills are easy to learn. Taking your corporate expertise and packaging that in a way you can sell it is relatively easy to do once you have clarity on where the demand is and who your client is. How you show up and the energy that you project when you enter a room is something that doesn't always come naturally and is a prerequisite to success. So, visibility is the thing. And thank you, Anna, for sharing your wisdom. And that's it for now, my friends. We will see you next week on Life After Corporate. Thanks for listening. And if you enjoyed this show, please take a moment, give us a rating or review on your favorite podcast platform. And we so appreciate that you take the time to listen to the show and share it with others. Thanks.